Alright, so hopefully you could see this, Syndrin. This video is kind of for you. So this is your desktop computer that I've been working on. Anyways, the main problem right now is power. So to give you a brief overlook, maybe I could turn on more light. So this right here, this dusty thing, is the CPU fan right here. Underneath you can see it's got metal coils right here, because that is its heat sink. Right here it's all metal, same kind of stuff that they use for air conditioners. And then underneath that is the pasted CPU, and this whole board is called the motherboard. Okay, so what I was waiting for in the mail to make it work is a single stick of RAM. This is RAM. As you can see, I'm only using one stick. I can easily take it out. That's one of the good things about desktop computers, is they're big and easily movable. And that's a stick of RAM. Always make sure your feet are grounded when you touch stuff like this, so you don't risk electromagnetic shock. And you can see that it's an 8GB DDR3. And you always have to be careful with the speed, 12.12800. So if you're ever gonna boost it and get more RAM, like if you want to fill up all of these slots, the blacks have to match up with the blacks, the blues with the blues. So I went ahead and just got you the best RAM that's available, in an 8GB stick. So if you wanted to, in theory, you could do a 16, all the way up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is quite insane, to be honest. Overkill. But I don't know. It's there if you want it. So RAM is known as, well, it stands for random access memory. It doesn't have to boot. It's all built on flash. It's all the stuff that you are currently doing, so that everything renders very, very quickly. Now, storage is a little different. Think of it like long-term and short-term memory. So this stick of RAM right here would be considered short-term memory. It's fast, and you can recall really quick, but it gets cleared out and erased eventually when you start doing something else. Now for long-term memory storage, that's when hard drives come into play. So you have hard drives. For example, this hard drive right here, all hard drives, at least currently, we will be changing soon. This is just your standard SATA solid state drive, so it has no moving parts in it. Very, very quick. The big cable with all these wires is the power for this hard drive. The little black cable, it doesn't have to be black. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it can be all sorts of colors. They do it all the time. But in this case it's black, and it goes in like that. And on the inside of all of them, they have a shape of an L. So it's kind of easy to put together. For example, here's a hard drive here. can you see how this part right here, this is for the power side. These gold looking connectors. Now this is for, the smaller one is for the data connection. The cable that can have different colors and stuff like that. And they're always in the shape of an L. Here, I'll show you. I'll take it out because it's a bad hard drive anyways. So they always look like that. So you got power that plugs in here, data that plugs into that L, and that's it. Bad hard drive. So these columns right here are for adding more storage, more long-term memory, things that you want to keep for a long amount of time. Now these don't have brackets, so you'll probably have to get something if you want to make it look nice, as long as you are diligent about it and, you know, don't spill stuff on your computer. You could just put the hard drive in there. I would recommend having some kind of insulation or something like that, makeshift, and just connect it like that and close up the lid, and it would work just fine. But it can slip around and move and stuff like that, which you might not want. So I would kind of encourage you to find a way to keep it still. Be creative, but keep in mind it's electronics, so use things that aren't conductive, like this material here, or, you know, plastics or stuff like that, just not metal. Back to the motherboard. Alright, so this is the power supply right here. This guy provides power for the entire thing. If I look on the back side, that's where the power plugs in. On off switch here. Typically you don't want to use this, but if you got to, you got to cut power or not. And it has, as you can see, a number of cables that come out of the power supply. All of these right here. Okay? So some of them are useful, some of them aren't, because times have changed. So the main thing is this right here. What's that tied to? Alright. See these right here that I have tied and wrapped? This goes to the main board right here. And this one, if you follow it up, it goes to the main board right up into here. It's very hard for you to see, but it's there, and the pin terminal connection looks like this. So why two instead of one? You're probably asking yourself. That's a little overcomplicated. I kind of asked myself that same question too, but it essentially powers different parts of the board. This part is mainly for the CPU, whereas the rest, this big bulky bigger one, is for the rest of the board, the RAM, and other things that I'll talk about. Next we have this battery right here. See if we can get a close look at it. That's just a nickel dime battery. They're standard desktop batteries. That's what keeps computers to remember what time it is, even when the computer is turned off. It reverts to that little bitty watch battery to remember that little bit of information. But it has time span, and it will eventually die if it's not plugged into power after a while, which is probably the case with this. But these are so cheap. Like, I'm talking less than $1. And the graphics card right there. You see these blue connections right here that I could put stuff in. These are for your standard PCIe Express graphics cards. And then we have other different things that you can experiment with, other cards of different types. Maybe you want to add a serial connection to be able to talk to something that understands that, or maybe you want to add something that's a little more high-tech. You can look up this board model, MSI 970A-G443, and look at all the capabilities of it. It is older, I'm not going to lie. This is where the SATA connections for the hard drive, remember, the little bitty L's, they go in to the motherboard so that it can talk to it. And really, that's about it, to be honest, as far as on the motherboard and how it works. So the first thing that will happen whenever you fire up a computer will be that, of course, the power supply is going to turn on, right? And that's going to ignite the board and the CPU to start, and the computer will pop up and do what's called post. Now, a lot of adults don't even know this, but post stands for power on self-test. So it's the time right when you turn it on, and before your computer screen will normally pop up and quickly say, it'll say press F2 or F12 to get into the BIOS or boot from a different source. Then you can configure the BIOS to do what you want, or you can boot to like a flash drive, like a USB flash drive, and tell it to go ahead and make an image of an operating system like Windows or Linux or Mac or any of those onto one of the hard drives. So once that USB drive that just has the image is done installing it on there, it'll be on the hard drive, and then you can just simply boot it up and you'll have your operating system of choice. You can get fancy though, like me, and have it boot up and come up with options like, would you like to boot into Windows? Would you like to boot into Mac, Linux? And there's so many different types, it would make your head spin, but it's all just your own preference. The top, I think this case is pretty good. I mean, I meant for it to be for my parents, but you know how that goes. You got different USB ports here. Any black USB ports are typically USB 2.0, and a blue USB port would indicate USB 3.0, which is faster speeds. I would reckon probably 5 times faster than 2.0, but today the fastest would be Type C. That's what Randall and Mia are probably charging their phones with, and you too, probably. Just because Type C is the fastest current data connection that we have, and it's not like micro USB where you can accidentally get it flipped upside down and it only goes in one way. Doesn't matter how you plug it in, it just plugs in. They can pass power and they can pass data. But this is USB 3.0. It's fine, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. And on the back, this is what you look like. So, these two on the top, that are the different colors people don't use anymore. It's nice to have though, these guys right here, because these are called PS2 connections. They're for old mice and keyboards. Well, not very. I would call myself very old then. But originally, that's what I used for mice and keyboards. Okay? Then we have here some more USBs. More USBs. 3.0. 2 USBs right there. We got Ethernet for internet right there. 2 USB ports. We got all of our audio connections right there. Then if we look down, we have our graphics card that I was showing you on the inside, where it connects to your monitor. It has different output options depending on the TV or monitor or whatever you're connecting it to. The front of it, it's just kind of boring looking. But yeah, that's about it.